Good evening, everyone. It's good to be back with you. Tonight is in India the grand night of Shiva, Mahashivratri, the grand night of Shiva. This is the night in the entire year when the Shiva consciousness, the Shiva tattva, is the easiest to tap into. And that is why across the length and breadth of India, in the ashrams, holy places, there are all-night vigils, chanting, meditation, different methods to tap into the vast potential which is offered on this day. And the tenet of this teaching is consciousness is all there is, as Rameshji would say. I would briefly like to share this teaching through another prism, that of the American mystic Joel Goldsmith. The words are different, but for those of you who are now intimately familiar with these talks, you will see how they reach the same place, because that place is within. I will read out 4 or 5 lines of Joel Goldsmith, which deliver this most beautiful message of Advaita, not two, not two. Begin your spiritual life with the understanding that all conflicts must be settled within your consciousness. There is never a conflict with person or condition, but rather a false concept mentally entertained about the person, thing, circumstance, or condition. Therefore, make the correction within yourself. rather than attempting to change anyone or anything in the without. Acknowledge God as the substance, law, cause, and activity of all that is, and refrain from meddling physically or mentally in the without. Get back inside yourself and there resolve all appearances. When living out from the center of being, you are untouched by the thoughts, opinions, laws, and theories of the world. Nothing acts upon you because you do not react to the world of appearances. In the spiritual life, you place no labels on the world. You do not judge as to good, evil, sick or well, rich or poor, and so on. While appearances may show forth harmony or discord, by not judging, you merely know what is, and let that which truly is define itself. You see, we may have an opinion about another person in our life, especially someone we don't get along with or someone we don't like. But the fact is that that opinion, that judgment is arising within our own consciousness. It is the content of our consciousness. Therefore, it is our perception. Supposing we pull out from the equation the other and myself, and let's say there's a judgment or label which is sitting in our consciousness right now. If we take somebody in our life and let's say we feel this person is a nasty person, he or she is nasty, or whatever label you want to put based on your own experience. Now, if we just remove the subject and the object, me and the other, if we just suspend them right now, the content of our consciousness is not just the word, but the feeling which the word nasty evokes. Nasty, 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 nasty. This is the content, the mantra which is playing out in consciousness. The subject and object are quite irrelevant here. So while it may appear that we have put a label onto an object, in this case someone else, someone I don't like, the fact is that we are most intimate with this feeling of nasty. what is repeatedly going on within you is what you are most intimate with. And to label someone else nasty, I must also know what it is to be nasty to some degree. So when we accept that everyone we encounter on life's journey is designed by the same source, consciousness, Shiva. Everyone comes with their script based on their genetics, their conditioning, and so on and so forth. What happens is that we see God in everyone, not God as a physical being, but the understanding dawns that it is the same consciousness at play here. So the compartmentalization, the classifications, grouping people up into different groups as far as we are concerned, all that starts dropping away. I read, I think it was in one of Joel Goldsmith's books, where he talks about this man who walks into a bar, sits on the bar stool at the bar counter, and orders one drink after another, one after another, one after another. And then he turns to look at the man next to him and he tells that man, look here, you better stop drinking. You're becoming very blurry. It is his own perception that has become blurry and it has got projected onto the other, which is what we do. Nochur Venkatraman, I read a book of his which is quite beautiful on the Dakshinamurti Stotra, I think, where he uses the phrase combing the mirror. When you wish to comb your hair, are you going to comb the hair in the reflection? You have to comb your own hair. But what we do is we try to straighten out the reflection. Don't be like this. Don't do this. You should not behave this way. You should not do that. Can you imagine a mind that is free of this burden of labels, opinions, judgments? How people should behave, what they should do, what they shouldn't do, and so on and so forth. That is called a vacant mind, completely transparent and open to what the present moment brings. As Joel Goldsmith said, this belief of two powers, this has to be given up. Good and evil. This battle with what life brings, especially with what we don't like, this battle, as if there is a power greater than God. When we accept what is, when we accept God's will, whether we like it or not, this battle with life is over. We have given up this belief in two powers. To use his phrase, we now withdraw all opposition to what life brings. We now withdraw all opposition to what life brings our way. We may not like it, but the fact that it has happened cannot be denied. So, to accept the happening and thereafter do precisely that which we think and feel we should do is the natural course of action. But where we get stuck is we have a problem with the happening itself. We are psychologically battling the happening itself. That is the opposition which Goldsmith is saying needs to be dropped. As Maharaj said, it is not what you do, but what you stop doing that matters. It is not what you do, but what you stop doing that matters. The expected rarely happens, the unexpected always does. If that is our own life's experience, that we never know what the next moment may bring. Sometimes pleasure, many times pain. If we just accept this for what it is and drop all the why is this happening to me? Why is God doing this to me? What did I do wrong? Etc., etc., etc. One will find that courage and strength come from somewhere. And that is why Rameshji said one starts living the life courageous. When we accept uncertainty is the very basis of life, let's look at our own life's experiences. The only certainty is death, that we are all sure of. But between now and death, we are not sure of anything. And that is why we build up this opposition. Nothing should happen to me while I'm alive. You see? Bono had mentioned in one song, uncertainty can be a guiding light. It is. It's so true. The only certainty is that nothing is certain in life. The dance of Shiva has been going on for the last 1 year specifically. Lives are being lost, jobs are being lost on a global scale. Nobody really saw this coming. At least now we are united in our suffering, if nothing else. Do not be concerned about your relationships with people. Consciously maintain your relationship with God, and this will take care of everything else. God is the cement between you and your brothers and sisters of the human, animal, vegetable, and mineral families. You see, it's so simple. If you truly have the understanding that we are all instruments of the same source, then our relationship is directly with the source, not with individuals. If someone at the dinner table passes an opinion on, let's say, a movie which you praised, and someone says exactly the opposite, that they thought it was a terrible movie, and at that moment, the understanding is that this person across me who has a contrary viewpoint is equally entitled to have it just as I have my viewpoint, because we are both separate instruments designed a certain way to have our likes and dislikes and so on. What happens is the other's opinion is not opposed, it is accepted. We withdraw all opposition. We don't try to convince the other that their view is wrong. We accept that, fair enough, that's your view, this is my view. And life becomes so simple. And that is why so beautifully he says it here. Do not be concerned about your relationship with people. Consciously maintain your relationship with God. That is what is happening now. That is precisely what is happening. Because you see the same divine force in everyone, especially the ones you don't like. And a mind that is not at conflict is a mind at peace. The content of consciousness is now peace. I met someone the other day who said he was not getting sleep at night. I met him after a week. He still said he's not getting sleep at night. So he went to the doctor. and the doctor is giving pills, etc., etc. But I asked him, I said, how is your daytime? He said, why are you asking me such an odd question? I said, peaceful days mean peaceful nights. Is something happening at work that is agitating the mind, therefore it can't sleep? How is the mind during the day? This teaching is like a pill for the mind that is not at peace, which is the thinking mind that goes into the dead past or an imaginary future and creates situations what should have been, what should be, based on what I think is right and wrong. That is why Maharaj said in meditation, and let's call it something as simple as sitting still right now. Witnessing whatever arises right now in consciousness. So, if right now eyes closed or eyes open, witnessing whatever arises as movements in consciousness. A thought may arise or it may not. If a thought does not arise right now, it will sooner or later. Consciousness contemplating on consciousness, which we rarely do. Our waking day is so busy that we don't take the time out to just honor the fact of being. Even if it's just 5 minutes sitting by ourselves quietly with the sheer fact that we are, the awareness of being, which is the foundation of our existence, and honoring that being. And if a thought arises, not pushing that thought away, because that means we are opposing what is. We have a battle with what is, allowing it to be. We are witnessing it. Witnessing is happening. The thought disappears at some point. Maybe another thought takes its place. Let it be. A total acceptance of what is in the moment is meditation. Therefore, there is no such thing as a good meditation or bad meditation. This is one of the biggest misconceptions. Meditation is not goal oriented. Oh, I had very few thoughts, therefore, I had a very good meditation. It could be the opposite. If you have many thoughts, you might have had a superb meditation. Why? Who is the one who is aware that there were many thoughts in the meditation? Those many thoughts in meditation are pointing to the one who was aware that there are many thoughts in meditation. But the ego likes to step in and say, I had a good meditation, I had a bad meditation. Labels get stuck. Once again, if for the next 2 minutes we sit quietly and allow what has to emerge, emerge. With no one running after that to judge it. We find we are flowing with what is. when witnessing starts happening more and more, one finds one is now living a life of equanimity. A gentleness comes into the way of living. A friendliness, one could say. With what is. And one will certainly find life becoming simpler and simpler and simpler. It is really true, as they say, you take one step towards God and God takes 10 steps towards you. You find that the universe supports this endeavor, this new way of looking at things, this new way of being. That is the gift of the spiritual journey. All right. If anyone would like to share anything or ask questions, they are welcome now. Before that, uh, just one or two announcements. The Sunday talks will resume perhaps in the middle of April for a few Sundays in a row. And that's the usual time. I've forgotten what the usual time is, whether it was 10 or 10:30. This reminds me of, when Nisargadatta Maharaj was quite old, his interpreter, his translator Mularpatan, one of the translators, one evening went for a walk with him. And he didn't live in an affluent neighborhood. He lived in Khetwadi, which was not the best of areas to live in. And so they had these hawkers selling various cheap items on the road. And one hawker was selling plastic combs. And so Maharaj bent down to pick up a comb and put it to his head. And Mullar Button looked at him quite astonished and said, "What are you doing?" So Maharaj looked up, perplexed. He said, "Maharaj, there's no hair now left on your head." He said, "Oh, I forgot." Being in the moment. And many volunteers have come forth over the last few months in the lockdown and immensely supported this teaching in various ways, a lot with their effort. And We are looking for some help in the editing and proofreading department. So if this is something which interests you, and more importantly, if you have the time to help us with this, then do get in touch with us. All right. I'm not able to look at chats because it's a bit distracting. So please, if you are sending questions, it's better to email them to the website and we can take them up in the Sunday talks. I know many people are not comfortable with coming onto Zoom, but have written before that they'd really like to participate indirectly by asking questions. So you're welcome to email them to us, but not on the chat because that gets missed actually. And also, please don't send me questions on Facebook because I lose track of that. I'm unable to answer that. There are too many messages and mails on Facebook. So the best option is the website because most of those I get to see. Okay. Yes, Holger.
Thank you, Gautam. Good
Hello.
to see you.
You too.
Thank you for this meditation. I had quite some pain in my left eye. Very interesting. And yeah, I think it was just or is just physical symptoms, pain actually, that just distracts me or just created this false sense of me inside of me. And just thank you for your gentleness and presence. And it's in a way like taking me by the hand and telling me just relax. And it's like a lifelong contraction somewhere inside of me.
Yes, I think, Holger, you're speaking on behalf of everyone, actually. What you have expressed is perhaps what everyone feels. And I can even understand the sentiment of taking one by the hand because that's the way I felt with my spiritual teacher. I really felt that here was someone who had walked on the road and was guiding me along. And what really amazed me was that it was done in such an open, transparent manner and accepting completely how the person was exactly as they were. That was so beautiful to see, to see how neutral a spiritual teacher could be, where he treated everyone who came in front of him the same way, no different at all. It was really a gift to see the teaching in action. So thank you for sharing that.
And then not to blame myself for all the years and decades where I just wasn't able to, I don't know, even something right now is just shaking inside of me. And just thank you.
My pleasure. This blaming oneself is the favorite pastime of ego. And it's so deep-rooted a conditioning because we have been taught this by our parents and they have been taught it by their parents. How dare you do this? Don't do this. Don't behave this way. That we start blaming ourselves for doing things which we weren't doing in the first place. They were happening, you see. And this is a deep-rooted collective conditioning, this blaming myself, you know. Um, I remember in Rameshji's lifetime, there was a lawyer from Sweden, very wonderful man, Goran Ekdal, he's no more. And he chose one book out of the 30 books to translate in Swedish. And that was the book called Sin and Guilt, because he told Rameshji that in the country where I come from, there's a lot of that. I doubt that book sold though. Okay, Holger, thank you. Thank you. Yes, James.
Hello, Gautam. Thank you for being here.
Hello, James. I'm so happy to see you guys out of India. I see daylight in your rooms. Otherwise, usually it's dark, and it's dark here tonight. So that's really the polaric opposites, isn't it?
It's fantastic. I'm able to be awake for all of satsang.
So that means you were sleeping all the time. I was wondering if you were in samadhi or you were sleeping.
I probably received a lot more being asleep. Gautam, I want to bring to you a very family issue. You know, I spent not a lot of time, but through Facebook, I connect with friends everywhere and along with my family. And my sister last week passed on a post from someone that was filled with racism and hatred and homophobia and all sorts of things that I found really upsetting, just because of what the ideas were that what she promoted by passing it on. And then I love my sister. She's been there, and I'm the oldest brother, and I feel like a caretaker of my sisters. And I don't know how to, like if I don't exist and I don't have to react to it, then I don't have to react to it, and I don't exist. And I just see it as a passing thought or something that I don't have to react to. At the same time, and I know that changing my sister is in its own kind of leela. So I'm just wondering, I'm just having a trouble whether I should sit down with her or through telephone have a conversation with her about my feelings about my sister, who I adore, passing on things that I find upsetting. So that's my question.
Thank you, James, because I love these pragmatic questions on day-to-day living that we all face. And you certainly exist. It's not that you don't exist. We all exist as individuals. That is why my teacher was so frustrated when people would say, oh, I know we don't exist. He said, you do exist as a separate entity with a name and form. You do have likes and dislikes. So what happens in this case, James? James first accepts that what happened through his sister was meant to happen. It took him by surprise, by all means, but it happened. Mm-hmm. Now, what does James do in this situation? He's surprised. He finds it quite unbelievable that the sister he adores could have forwarded such a thing. What this teaching says is, James, do precisely that which you think and feel you should do, knowing that you are not the doer and nor is anyone else. This is not a play of words. James has to do precisely that which he thinks and feels he should do. In this case, James feels that he must have a chat with his sister whom he adores. And because he adores her, he feels the need to express himself. So he does precisely that which he thinks and feels he should do, knowing that neither are the doer of their actions, which means James is not going to sit down with his sister, point a finger, you did this, how did you do this, how dare you do this, who do you think you are by passing on these kind of messages. That drops away. When you accept, there are reasons I don't know of, I haven't spoken to my sister about it, what was her trigger, I don't know. There's no judgment.
Mhm.
There's an acceptance of the happening, the feeling it evokes in myself, which I would like to share because we love each other. All this is a part of what is accepted as one movement, not as splintered movement. But the beauty of the teaching is James is not targeting an individual who did something. He is, in fact, looking objectively at an event which upset him. This event happened through his sister, whom he adores, and therefore, James is going to express his point of view, which is equally valid in this whole situation. So, James is not holding back from his natural instinct, which is to react. In fact, James, if you hold back, that is too much doership. If you want to say something and you're holding back and saying, oh, I don't exist, so I should not say anything, that is too much doership. You see, this is the Leela, this is the Maya we get stuck in. And that is why the only issue here is doership. When we realize that a perspective on that is misplaced, you will really find that you are talking to your sister in such an objective way to just get an understanding of where she is coming from, what were her triggers, and it will be a very different kind of sharing which will happen with her than if you blamed and accused her for something that she did. That is what I meant when Joel Goldsmith says, withdraw all opposition. It does not mean don't express yourself.
Mm.
That's very important to understand because we are equally the creator's children. James is equally the creator's child, so he's free to express what he is considering his genetics, his nature, his programming is a beautiful expression of the same divine source. Why should he not express it?
Mm.
Now, it may be that James's nature is the opposite. I don't get involved in any situations. I really don't care. I don't mind. My sister said this and it's fine. Then that's his nature. But in this case, it's certainly not James's nature because this feeling is arising to speak to the sister. And that must be honored.
Mm.
That must be honored.
Mm. I'm going to take time to be as objective as possible before I speak to her.
All we can do is try, but the results are never in our control.
I still have some work to do, but I promise you I'll do it. Thank you, Gautam.
I think it was Robert Frost who said, the woods are lonely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep.
Miles to go before I sleep.
Okay.
And then we must take the road less traveled by.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gautam.
Yes, Michael.
Hi, Gautam. Thank
Hello,
you for
Michael.
this time and space.
How are you?
Fine, fine. I wanted to ask you about, it's something similar to what James was saying about decision making. In my case, I'm in a relationship and it's come to a point where I don't know whether to continue or not. And I'm really torn between these two feelings. It's not like I have a clear picture that my nature is saying, go this way or that way, but I'm really torn. I just don't know which way to go. Any thoughts?
Yes. It might seem easier said than done, Michael, but I do believe in such situations when one can't make up one's mind, One allows God to let the event flow the way it is meant to flow. You see, because when we are in this doubt, it is the me still trying to control the situation. Should I do this or should I do that? Should I go this way? Should I not go that way? So it's actually a game the me plays, thinking that I can actually control the way this flows. And the truth is, it has absolutely no control. This sense of control over the relationship needs to be given up and let God decide which way the relationship should go. Whatever is meant to happen will happen, irrespective of Michael feeling he can control the outcome.
Including certain actions I may or may not take.
Exactly. Because you may intend a certain action and may carry forth that action, but the result may be something else. That is one's life experience. So actually, this is an important point you have raised, because many of us find ourselves in two minds about a situation or a relationship or something where we get stuck. And what I have seen is, in such a situation, if we just drop this two mind state and allow what has to happen, knowing that it is the will of the divine, one is more at peace. The factor of control is given up. A
As John
relationship,
Lennon would say, let it be.
yes, a relationship will give you up. You don't need to give a relationship up. If the Rinanubandhan is finished, it is finished. If the bond is finished and consumed, no power on earth can continue that bond. And if that bond is not finished, no power on earth can finish it before its time. And the ego needs to realize this. You see, we have so many instances of people who are caught in relationships of action reaction. You know, it is like an energy charge, which is a full conflict based relationship, but they can't help it. They are stuck in it. You see, that is the bondage of the relationship, and that bondage is based on doership. If one of the two in the relationship has the awareness and the understanding, then what will happen is that one will be the witnessing presence and will not play this game of action reaction. And when the witnessing presence steps in, so to speak, in the relationship, then it is already decided by the source which way the relationship will go. Either the other person in the relationship will oppose, or will surrender and accept the relationship for what it is. Either way, it is only the witnessing presence which can bring about a change in the equation, if it is meant to be. No amount of the individual trying to control and think, should I do this or should I do that? Should I do this or should I do that? That is what is actually keeping everything in this very tense engagement. How much are we willing to let go of? How much of any relationship are we willing to let go of? We have to ask ourselves this question. And you may say it's the easy way out, but one knows deep down which relationships one feels enhanced in, one feels a deep sense of bonding and peace Maybe trouble on the surface. All relationships have that because we are personality driven. But deep down, one knows that with this person, I feel at home. And even the opposite is true. Deep down, one knows one is not feeling at home with this person. All the other boxes are tick marked. But deep down, that sense of peace, is it disturbed or am I anchored in it? What does this relationship actually bring to me? That anchoring or the opposite? This we know, Michael, we know it.
Yes, we do.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
You see, I wanted to add something here for everyone, that whether it is Michael's question, whether what James shared, what Holger shared, it's all about relationships with either someone else or with oneself. It is all about relationships. And when we start looking at our relationships through the eyes of non-duality, and we start questioning our long cherished beliefs about people, about how people should be, how I should be, and so on and so forth, what happens ultimately is, it is not a cliche when they say ultimately there are no others, because the relationship is the relationship to me. The relationship, if it is a harmonious relationship, it means that my relationship with myself is harmonious. If you are experiencing in your life, as a result of the teachings, more harmony in relationships all around, generally one could say, what does that mean? That the harmony of consciousness of God, of the lack of separation, is being felt. It is very subtle. It cannot be measured also. But if you look back, maybe 1 month ago, 6 months ago, 1 year ago, let's say one was not exposed to the teaching and now one has a certain understanding, and one sees, one views each relationship in a different way, in a different light. Even if the buttons are pushed, even if the old triggers are there, the involvement in that is much less now. The reactivity is much less. Then our relationship with the so-called other, which is actually reflecting our relationship with ourselves, that is getting redefined. And that is why Joel Goldsmith says your relationship is now with God and not individuals. That is why Aurobindo said, when you are giving gifts to people, are you giving it to individuals Or are you giving gifts with the awareness that you are giving gifts to the same divine being that is in everyone? A Tibetan course, which I did, said, it is what you give to the other is that which you truly possess. What you give to the other is what you possess. Because it is consciousness giving consciousness. Consciousness is giving itself the gift. Imagine if you have to give a gift to someone and you count your pennies and say, no, I'm not going to spend money on this gift. I'm going to give this fellow something cheap. Where your heart is not in it and it's just a part of social conditioning which is making you do that. Consciousness is giving a cheap gift to the other just to fulfill a social conditioning. It is gifting itself that back. How generous can one be with one's time, with one's possessions? How generous can one be towards others? How generous is one when someone asks, can we meet you? I want to talk to you. Someone calls you. How generous are you with the other is a reflection of how generous you are with yourself. All right. So let's sit in silence for a few minutes before we end this talk. I may or may not say something during these few minutes. It depends what comes up or what doesn't come up. I don't know. But silence is the most underrated aspect of consciousness because it goes unnoticed. Noise gets noticed. If suddenly you hear noise now in your meditation, for example, the attention goes straight to the noise. The attention goes to the noise. When there's no noise, where is the attention? The attention rushes to an object. So when there is no disturbance, we are resting in our natural state of being. That is the gift of silence. Some people can't bear it. I had a school friend who said he could not close his eyes for more than 30 seconds because he was too afraid. A friend's daughter said she could not sit in meditation for more than 2 minutes because the compulsion was there to immediately start checking her WhatsApp messages on the mobile phone. That is the mind which wants to be kept engaged. Why? Because it does not want to die. My absence is terrifying to me. All right, I'll just change the screen so I can see everyone. You see, we are closest to each other when we sit in silence, because everything else is a projection. Mother, sister, father, friend, colleague, etc., etc., etc. But when I am silent and you are silent, there are no two different silence. Silence is silence, it's one. I'd like to end on a Joel Goldsmith quotation. Do not expect the power of God to function in the dream, but rather to break the dream. Do not contact God to adjust, change, or heal the dream. The understanding or awareness of God breaks the dream. The understanding or awareness of God, consciousness, conscious presence, abiding in your being, breaks the dream.